Peter Wood.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. I'm Peter Wood. I am an advisory neighborhood commissioner in Adams Morgan, and I'm here to voice general support for this proposed legislation. I really just wanted to testify because I felt an obligation as someone who represents Adams Morgan. I think it goes probably without saying that Adams Morgan is a pretty good example of what I think this bill is trying to address, which is coexistence of things, and those things are vibrant social life, nightlife, etc., as well as peaceful places to live. It was a cool coincidence that the language of vibrant neighborhoods was put into the introduction of this bill. And for the last 4 years, I've campaigned as a commissioner on a platform of safe homes, vibrant streets, affordable living. And I think that this proposed legislation is aiming to address how all three of those intersect. I also, in my paid job, just kind of an interesting detail. I work in telecom research, and very similarly, technology, settlement patterns, demand for all these different goods and services has changed quite a bit in the last 20 plus years, except one thing hasn't really changed, and that seems to be legislation, at least as it pertains to the things that we're talking about. So I'm encouraged to see there's multiple council members that want to work ahead and address these issues, because just speaking as commissioner, this is something that comes up fairly regularly with constituents, as well as business owners, workers, and the customers that frequent our neighborhood and other nearby neighborhoods. A lot of constituents of mine, I have very, I think, inspiring conversations where they say, look, I moved into a neighborhood very well aware that 18th Street in Columbia is an area where people make noise and have fun and all these things. I don't want it to be silent. I don't expect that. I didn't move here for that. But also, there's some expectation that people should be able to have some peace of mind at home. Everything is a give and take. And even the people who seem to be more skeptical, I should say, of the entertainment district in Adams Morgan, still, I think, genuinely have an appreciation for how arts in general and music in specific are a really important part of really the fabric of this community and really what makes Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. At least in my reading of this bill, it presents us with two claims that I think can be simultaneously accurate. One, that a robust performing art scene can be good for a city, and two, that residents deserve peace of mind in their homes. There are some issues that I think that are addressed in the bill that are worth much more lengthy discussions going forward. Just to point those out, cost enforcement are obviously very important parts of this. We don't want to create undue cost burdens on people in order to make this happen. And also, if enforcement is not adequate, it's probably not going to be particularly useful. And I say that as someone who's seen that firsthand, where the written law, in some cases, is pretty well written for certain types of noise ordinances, but talk to the residents and their experience of how that actually gets implemented can vary quite a bit. Grants and tax deductions, I think, are important measures to make sure that, especially people who have really lived a long time next to areas, but might not have the means to make sure that their soundproofing is adequate. That's, I think, an important place, as well as for people that are looking to invest in the neighborhood as business owners. I do think that the enforcement could potentially be convoluted, so that's worth addressing. I think simple and effective interagency communication, or ideally just one agency can do it all, would be really great. There's lots of ways to approach that. And I think an interesting example, I talk about 18th Street in Columbia, where kind of obvious places for noise mitigation to come up. But in Calorama Park that I live nearby and represent, this is also a thing as well. So I would say that people bringing sound into different types of areas is very relevant, and I've spent a lot of time talking to constituents about it. And I would support doing what this bill already says to do, which is creating a report that addresses, and ideally in my mind, maps where there are kind of inadequate or insufficiently soundproofed buildings and areas that can be really important, if anything, to, I think, be proactive and approach the owners and tenants of those residences to make sure that they understand, one, where they live, and two, that there are mechanisms in place to make things a better balance for all. So I'll conclude there. Thank you for your time. Here for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner.